Hey everyone, welcome to the Girls Gone Sporty live weekly cooking show. So if you're watching this right now on Thursday night at 8 p.m., everything that's happening is happening live. That's why I try not to use too many knives during this segment. We don't want anything to go horribly wrong. But tonight we'll be cooking up cauliflower chicken nuggets. Now these are not chicken nuggets. There's no chicken in them. They are, quote, chicken nuggets made out of cauliflower. Now there's a story behind why I'm doing this particular recipe tonight, which I'll get to in a little bit, but we're gonna dive right in. Now this recipe is actually very, very easy. I've already preheated my oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and I did already take one head of cauliflower and break it up into pieces, and you can have pieces of different sizes. It doesn't really matter. That's probably the most time-consuming part of the whole recipe. If you've been over on my website and you've seen the recipe and the instructions, I'm gonna do things a little bit differently in terms of mixing, just for the purposes of this show. On the recipe, I did describe how you can mix it using a big Ziploc baggie, but just so you can see better, I'm gonna be mixing things in a bowl this time. It's a little messier, but works the same. So what I have here, I have one head of one head of cauliflower broken up into pieces. I have 1 cup of 100% whole grain or whole wheat panko breadcrumbs. And then I have some spices. I've roughly, to start, because this is all to taste what you personally like, I have roughly a tablespoon of chili powder, roughly a tablespoon of garlic powder. I have a couple pinches of sea salt and a couple pinches of black pepper. So very basic, very simple. I have my spices out just in case I feel I need a little bit more. So all I'm doing is throwing those in there. I'm gonna grab myself a spoon and I'm gonna mix up my spices. Want the mix nice and mixed. Makes sense, right? And at this point, you just kind of want to taste it, see if it has like a good flavor for you. And obviously I'm the one who's going to be eating these, so it's okay that I licked my finger first. That's actually pretty perfect for me. So I like this. It might be a little bit spicy for some. You might want to add a little more salt if you like your chicken nugget salty, but I think that's a really good mix. So again, that was about 1 tablespoon of chili powder, 1 tablespoon of garlic powder, a couple pinches of sea salt, and a couple pinches of black pepper. So what you do at this point, you take an egg, and this is where it gets a little messy. Crack the egg open, pour it into your cauliflower, and then you're mixing. So you're just trying to get the cauliflower coated in that egg so that this mixture, this dry mixture, will end up sticking to the cauliflower pieces. And I used 1 large egg. If you have medium eggs, you might want to go two medium eggs. It's your call. Just want to get everything nice and coated. And if you're doing it in a Ziploc bag to avoid the mess, all you do is just shake things up. Shake things up until everything's nice and coated. All right, so we are pretty good here. So now, don't mind my dirty hands. You're just gonna take your breading, you're gonna pour it over the top, or if you're using a Ziploc bag, you just pour it into the bag and you mix a little further. And it's gonna be a little bit more than you actually need to kind of coat your cauliflower pieces here, which is a-okay, but you can see the breading sticks on there pretty nicely. Once that's done, you just take your pieces and you spread them out over a pan. And you try to offer some space between your pieces of cauliflower here. I mean, you don't want them to be too close together because you do want them to be able to crisp up a little bit, but I have a lot of cauliflower left. So I'm gonna pour that on there, and I've got Brussels sprouts over here that I just roasted, and I used a different pan to roast them. So I'm gonna just put the extra onto this pan here. If it picks up a little bit of the flavoring of the Brussels sprouts, that's okay with me. I like my Brussels sprouts. All right, and we've got some little tiny baby pieces left in here. I'm not gonna worry too much about them. For the most part, we got all the big stuff spread out over the pan. And I do put a little bit of oil onto the pan just to prevent these pieces from sticking too much. So I'm gonna spread those out a little bit more and add a couple of these here just to kind of give a little extra space to the pan. See if we can't get that all nice and spread out. Okay, so now that my hands are disgusting, go ahead and rinse those off. Wipe them off, and then just pop the pans into the oven. So we're gonna pop those in there. And they're gonna cook for roughly 20 to 30 minutes. I'll get into that in a little bit. Part of the reason because of the cook time here, and just because I was hungry, I figured I would also make some Brussels sprouts, because once you go down the cruciferous vegetables road and all the potential gassy side effects of cruciferous vegetables, you might as well go all the way. We had a thing of Brussels sprouts in there, and I was like, you know what, I'm hungry. I need some veggies. Might as well make some Brussels sprouts too. But that's beside the point. So first, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what happened this week to prompt me to make this recipe. I originally wrote this particular cauliflower chicken nuggets recipe about a year ago, so not quite. And it was something that I was inspired to do in part because I had done a different cauliflower recipe for cauliflower hot wings. And I had been inspired by something I'd seen on Pinterest, and I made a recipe that was slightly adapted. And I credited my source for that one. And then I was like, you know what? I've made breaded things before, so I might as well see what it would taste like to make a breaded cauliflower nugget. And I had seen pictures of something similar online, but I hadn't actually viewed or looked at any recipes to put them together. So I just kind of made up my own recipe. So that was about a year ago. And there's not a whole lot of search traffic, generally speaking, for cauliflower chicken nuggets. So it's not something that generated lots of traffic to our site. Well, earlier this week, normal day, everything's going along great. And my husband was like, hey, we have a lot of traffic coming to our site. And I was like, oh, I wonder why that might happen. And come to find out, almost all the traffic was going to the cauliflower chicken nuggets recipe. And I was like, that is odd. I wonder if someone with like a big Pinterest following pinned one of the pins that I had pinned of this recipe from a year ago. And come to find out, it wasn't traffic coming from Pinterest, it was traffic coming from Google, which is wonderful. Like if you're a blogger, if you're running a website, you want that search traffic coming from, or you want your traffic coming from search, because that means you'll consistently be getting higher levels of traffic because you've gained that type of presence online. So I was like, oh, great, maybe something happened and we jumped up and we're getting ranked higher on search rankings. So we were looking into it a little more, and about an hour later, the traffic had drastically dropped off, which is a good indicator that it wasn't search traffic from, you going up in rank. It was more search traffic from some impetus. So something going on in the national eye that generates traffic to your site, which made me go, okay, what happened? And I had a friend who actually said maybe it was something to do with the Super Bowl, like Super Bowl snacks. And I thought, okay, yeah, I can see that. An afternoon show maybe featuring cauliflower chicken nuggets. I'm not the first one to ever come up with them. I've seen other images of them online. Cauliflower chicken nuggets on their show. So I was looking around a little more, just trying to figure it out. And I realized that the Doctors, the nationally syndicated TV show, had run a segment on cauliflower chicken nuggets. And I was like, well, that makes sense. So if people were watching the Doctors, sure, they would go online, they'd search cauliflower chicken nuggets, and we're lucky enough that we're actually the first search result if you search cauliflower chicken nuggets. Awesome. And so I happened to click on a link that was from it was called Recapo is the website, and it's a recap site of other people's shows. And they were doing a recap of the Doctors. So I was scrolling down and kind of reading through and was like, oh, this is interesting. And down at the bottom, I saw the recipe. And the recipe that Recapo was citing was taken word for word, like not just the ingredients, but every single piece of that recipe was taken from Girls Gone Sporty. At first, I wrongly thought that Recapo just kind of decided to throw a recipe up there and searched for cauliflower chicken nuggets, and ours was the first one, and so they just kind of put it up there and said, here's a recipe. So I did actually contact them and said, you need to give me credit. But it wasn't their fault. They had actually taken the recipe directly from the Doctor's website, which my husband went to the site and he happened to find that, oh, there is a recipe here, and oh wait, it is taken word for word from our site as well, and they didn't link back or give us credit. And at first I was kind of mildly annoyed because recipes fall in a gray area. Technically, recipes are not copyrightable in and of themselves in most cases because it's considered an evolving art. You know, people are likely to have made very similar recipes. They could duplicate someone else's recipe and never know it because they just like playing in the kitchen and they make things. And like I'd made cauliflower chicken nuggets and other people have made cauliflower chicken nuggets and I didn't use anyone else's recipe and they might not have used anyone else's recipe. So it's just one of those things where initially I wasn't outraged. I was kind of like, well, that seems off. But then I was watching the show clip, and it was really cool to see that all these doctors on the show were saying how great the recipe was. Like, oh, this is really good. Oh my gosh, with the barbecue sauce, it really does taste like chicken nuggets. It tastes like the real thing. And I was like, that's really cool that they're saying that. And then at the very end, the host said, go to our website to check out the recipe. And that made me go, wait a minute. This national television show with millions of viewers, millions of followers, is telling people to go to their website to access their recipe, but it's my recipe. Like every piece of it was word for word. And even if I can't copyright that recipe, there are ethical guidelines regarding fair use and what you can and cannot do. And they had not adapted the recipe at all. They had not changed anything. They hadn't even changed the language that is clearly my own personal quirky language in the recipe. They had changed little things in terms of, separating steps some more, but it was still word for word what I had written. And so I was like, okay, this doesn't seem right. This really doesn't. I'm little Laura here in Texas. I don't know who to reach out to or how to get this fixed. But this seems really wrong because I'm glad I got a boost in traffic, but had they given credit, how much traffic could I have gotten? How cool would that have been for me to be able to be like, look at this clip, they featured my recipe, they gave me credit, and they didn't. And that was really lame. So I didn't know what to do. And I went to their website and their contact form was very generic. And I tried to leave a comment on their site and their comments go through moderation, so it wasn't showing up. And I went to their Facebook page and their direct messaging had been disabled. And I went to their Twitter page and their direct messaging had been disabled. So any way I could think of to try to contact them directly was not going to happen. So I took to the internet and I am incredibly grateful for the social following that I have and for the friends of social following that I have. So I asked for help and I said, you know what? This happened. It seems really wrong. I know some people might think I'm blowing this out of proportion, but come on, this is a national television show. They should know better. And not just should know better, they do know better. So what was the reason for them not providing credit? And I wrote a blog post about it. I wrote some posts on social about it, and things got shared and shared and shared. And there was a click to tweet on the blog post I wrote about it, and people clicked to tweet and clicked to tweet. And it was really wonderful. It was really wonderful to see the outpouring of support that I received. And yesterday at about noon, I got a call from their vice president of publicity. And while they never admitted fault, they claimed it was an oversight, which frankly I have a hard time believing, but they did provide credit on their website. You know, you can't go back in time and refilm that clip. So obviously I don't have credit for anything that happened on the show. But they've said that they would link out to Girls Gone Sporty when sharing it on social media, which they haven't done yet, but here's hoping. And you know, I wasn't going through this to sue them or to look for any sort of recompense for this happening. You know, I just wanted credit. So I got credit, and that was awesome, and I would not have been able to get credit without the support I got from the online community. So for those of you who took part in that, again, I want to say thank you. And the reason why I'm actually cooking this tonight isn't because of that directly, but because it's a great recipe, and the Super Bowl is this Sunday, and it's a great Super Bowl Sunday type recipe, especially if you're wanting to lighten things up a little bit and go for veggies instead of, I don't know, hot wings from your local takeout place. So I decided it was good timing to go ahead and cook this one up, and then I didn't have a video regarding it, so that worked well. And yeah, so that's kind of it. I figure I hadn't kind of revisited this recipe in a while, and now seems like as good a time as any. So that is the story behind this recipe and why it's the one that I chose to do this week. I'm going to take a peek at these. So what you're looking for if you're cooking along is you want the edges to start to crisp up a little bit. So after about 15 minutes, we'll go ahead and flip all the little pieces around and let them cook up a little more. You want the insides to be soft and the outsides to start getting a little bit crisp. And yeah. Now on my post earlier, on my newsletter, I said that I would be drinking some birthday beer. And this is a product plug, not because I'm getting anything for it. Although if Shiner wants to send me some of this, I would take it. But no, just because we discovered these Shiner beers at our local grocery store, and this is the birthday beer, and we love it. It tastes like chocolate cake, but not sweet, which sounds really weird, but it's actually really good. So I'm gonna go ahead and enjoy me a little bit of birthday beer here. I don't know how well this pour's going. And this technically, this beer is 2 beers worth, so I'm gonna set half aside for my husband later. But I'm gonna go ahead and enjoy a little bit of beer. All right, so what I also wanted to talk about, again, I said I was hungry, and I still am. I haven't eaten in a little bit. So I was getting ready for cooking up the cauliflower tonight and realized we had a bag of Brussels sprouts like back in the back of the fridge. And I was like, A, we should probably cook those before they go bad. And B, I'm hungry and it's gonna take a little while for the cauliflower to cook. So might as well have something that I can maybe munch on while the cauliflower is cooking. But C, who doesn't want to learn how to, you know, roast up some Brussels sprouts? So maybe you don't, I don't know. But recipe's very, very easy. I took a bag of Brussels sprouts, washed them, cut each Brussels sprout in half. And normally I would roast them at like anywhere between 450 and 475. I normally go a little bit higher heat because I like the edges to get really, really crispy. But I kept it on the 400 tonight because I knew it was going to be 400 for the cauliflower, so I figured might as well not rock the boat. So roasted these at 400, and for about a little bit longer because it was at the lower temperature, but for about 30 minutes or so, flipping them a couple times throughout that. But all I did was cut them in half, spread them out on a baking sheet, put a little bit of olive oil on top, probably about 2 tablespoons or so. I sprinkled some sea salt on top and put some pepper on top as well. Then just mixed it all around to try to get them nice and coated and evenly coated, and popped it in the oven. And that is quite literally how these roasted Brussels sprouts are made. And I may be a little bit weird because I like them plain, but I actually like dipping them in ketchup and pretending they're fries, which admittedly is a little bit weird. They don't taste like fries, so don't try to think they are. But that's another really easy way to make veggies, especially something like Brussels sprouts that can be really terrible. These taste really good. They're nice and soft on the inside. They have a nice crisp exterior. My husband loves dipping them in ranch dressing instead of ketchup. Either way, whatever you want, or you can eat them plain. I like them plain. One thing I always like mentioning to people is whenever you're eating something, and this particularly is true of the cauliflower, whenever you're eating something that is being touted as something else. So cauliflower chicken nuggets. What comes to mind is often veggie burgers or grain burgers or anything where you might go into it having kind of a preconceived notion of what it might taste like. I always recommend not assuming it will taste like something else. So, for instance, don't go into eating your cauliflower chicken nuggets the first time assuming it's going to taste just like a chicken nugget, especially if you just had a chicken nugget today or yesterday or any time in the last couple months. Because you know what a chicken nugget tastes like, and you know what the texture's like, and you know on a scale of 1 to 10 how much you enjoy it. So if you go into it assuming that these cauliflower nuggets are going to be the exact same experience, you might come out of it going, maybe they're okay, maybe they're not, maybe you hate them because it's just not the same. I always recommend trying to appreciate a food for what it is and not thinking about what it isn't. The best example of this that I can give was back in college. I tried my first ever veggie burger, and I'm not talking like a soy burger. I'm talking, a legit veggie burger. It's got grains and it's got veggies, and I had one on a bun with the normal burger fixings, and I took a bite assuming it was going to taste like a burger or something similar to a burger, and I was so disappointed. And I was like, that was terrible. It was nothing like what I thought it was going to taste like, and I thought I would never have one again. A couple months later, I was back at my parents' because that's where I'd had the first one, and they were serving them up again, and I figured, okay, I'm going to try it again. I'm going to try it without any of the toppings, any of the fixings. I'm going to try this veggie burger for what it is. And I took a bite, and I loved it. From that point on, whenever I was at my parents', as long as they had them, I'd make my own, and usually I wouldn't eat it like a burger. I'd just eat it like a patty, have some stuff on the side, and loved it from that point on. And I've had similar experiences since then with other things, but that's kind of my 2 cents when it comes to approaching new foods that might be healthier replacements for your favorites. Another example is pizza. Growing up, most kids just love pizza from takeout places. I stopped eating pizza, I think, my freshman year in college. I know I had some, But after that, I really changed my diet, and I was really trying to figure out, what should I be eating? What shouldn't I be eating? I got a little bit too restrictive at one point. Wasn't great. But when I decided to reintroduce some pizza into my life, because who doesn't want to reintroduce some pizza into your life? What I discovered was that there were some shortcuts I could take, but they weren't going to taste like the takeout pizza, or they weren't going to taste like the pizza my mom made growing up. It might be a very, very thin crust pizza, or it might be a pizza made with fewer toppings, or it might be a pizza that's made a certain way. So currently, my husband and I are huge fans of Amy's, the brand, which is available at most stores, I believe, in some capacity. But there are Amy's pizzas, they're frozen pizzas. They have incredible ingredients, all natural ingredients, and we love their spinach pizza. And it doesn't taste like something you would get, I don't know, at Pizza Hut, but it tastes really good for what it is. And then you get to the point where that's just what you like. It takes a little time sometimes, and you won't like everything, and you don't have to like everything, but it's a good way to kind of approach your food choices. So I'm going to take a peek at these. All right, go ahead. Take these out. They're not done yet, but you can see that there's a little bit going on there, a little bit of crisping happening. So I'm going to mix things around a little bit here. And since I did oil the pan a little bit, you'll see these move around nice and easy. No sticking to speak of, which is wonderful. And I don't think we have all that much longer here, which is nice. And this pan's actually getting a little bit closer. It was on the bottom rack, so it was closer to the heat source. So I'm gonna actually switch these two pans. So this one will be on the top rack when I put it back in, and this one will go on the bottom. So we probably have a few more minutes here. All right, a little more time left, not too long. I won't keep you forever. I hope you're enjoying your drink, and I hope that you're enjoying whatever's coming out of my mouth, because sometimes I never know. But one other thing I wanted to talk about tonight was actually stimulated again by this recipe. And when I originally shared this recipe to Pinterest a year ago, basically, I had one comment on the pin, which I didn't acknowledge because I didn't think it was necessarily. But one comment said, "How can it be a healthy recipe if you're dipping them in barbecue sauce?" And the comment made me sad. And it made me sad on a lot of levels, because I've been that person who's overly restrictive. I've been that person who was probably borderline eating disorder of some sort, never officially, but I was there. And it's not a good place to be. It's not a good place to live. And we have these extremes in our lives and in our lifestyles. And especially, I think, once you start making healthy choices, which is wonderful, there is this inclination to gradually get to the point where you go a little bit overboard. And to that, I would say everything in moderation is wonderful. I can enjoy a beer. I can enjoy dipping some Brussels sprouts and or cauliflower into a little bit of ranch dressing or a little bit of ketchup or a little bit of barbecue sauce. Are those things in and of themselves overtly healthy? Probably not. There's sugar content and salt content, and there are certainly reasons why they don't make the list of most healthy foods. But if you enjoy them and you're not going overboard with them, and it's not like an everyday, all day, every meal type of thing, there's absolutely no reason not to give yourself some leeway there. So that's kind of my quick little 2 cents about dipping sauces. Are they 100% the healthiest thing in the world? No. I mean, putting butter on your toast isn't 100% the healthiest thing in the world. But if it allows you to enjoy your food, because food is supposed to be enjoyed, and if it allows you to make some healthy choices along the way that maybe you wouldn't have made otherwise, then more power to you. You know, it's just a matter of really paying attention to portion sizes, really being honest with yourself about how often you are giving yourself leeway. Because there is a tendency to want to celebrate all the time and to let kind of small celebrations turn into all the time celebrations. So I'd say in that respect, be a little careful, but don't be a denial queen. Don't always deny yourself the things that you enjoy. All right, I'm gonna check on these again because we're probably just about there. All right, so these are probably a little bit hot. So I'm gonna go for a smaller piece. That's good. And it's the consistency. I mean, let's be real, it's cauliflower. It has a little bit of cauliflower taste. Like, don't expect it to taste exactly the same. But especially, you add a little bit of dipping sauce. We're not talking about a mountain of dipping sauce. And the texture and the consistency is right, and it just tastes good. And it is a good alternative. It's even at least semi-kid friendly. You can try it with your kids, see what they think. But it's a good alternative. Way to get some extra veggies into your life, into your day. I'm gonna go ahead and go eat because I'm hungry. But thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I hope you'll be back next Thursday, same time, 8 p.m. Central Time. And we do our live workouts every Sunday at 3. So this Sunday, it's Super Bowl Sunday, I will be putting together a pregame workout for you at 3. So be sure, Central Time, be sure to tune in with me then and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks again. We'll see you soon.